Okay? They developed the path, they looked at the winds, they looked at the trajectory, and they said the path of the balloon will be along this white line going more toward the north and to the east. But in our initial operations, our initial search zone was that yellow area, about 1,300 acres of extremely dense wooded area. And because of that, very early we called in Henrico County Police Department, their air support, Virginia State Police, air support. And we knew the only way to get quick and hasty searches done was by that air support. And they did find things for us to go in. We found the first victim in that manner. Saturday and Sunday, we were able to narrow our search down based on information that we found from searching in the woods to that red zone, and that was our primary target zone. And in the end of the day, we found all of the pieces for recovery in that red zone. Okay? But initially, a very large search area, a very daunting task for the first responders to get there. I think it's important for the board to know the breadth of the people that were there. Virginia State Police had a very strong presence, but you look at all the other agencies that came apart to make this thing happen. The event happened around 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. on a Friday. By 6 in the morning, we had the majority of these people at Caroline Pines, ready to go, getting debriefed by Major Mosier to go out in the field and begin a coordinated search effort. So a lot of people were dropped in Caroline County very quickly. The sheriff and I have just completed thank you letters to all of these agencies. The sheriff himself will reach out to Virginia State Police because they did put a tremendous amount of resource into the county to make this search effective, as well as Henrico County Police Aviation Division. Without their aircraft covering that zone, we would have not found the spot fire, which led us to the first person, which really began our theories to work from that person back toward the strike zone. So, any questions about any of those agencies? Lastly, I just want to focus on a couple things for the board. Every 4 years, the board approves the Caroline County Emergency Operations Plan. It is that plan we used for this event. That plan identified who was going to be in charge, and that became very important for us. We had a lot of different organizations there. For the first 10 hours, the fire department was in charge. For the remaining of the event, the sheriff's office was in charge. So we had a national event, but it was truly managed locally by our office, the sheriff's department, and all the other people that came in. But again, it was stayed local as a management tool. The incident commanders switched back and forth between our office and the sheriff and the captain. And that is a little different. That's identified in the board's plan.
You said you were in charge for the first 10 hours.
That's correct.
Is that because it was a rescue operation and then it became a recovery operation and the sheriff was in charge?
That's correct. And the recovery really was a search and rescue at that point, or search and recovery at that point.
Search and recovery, right.
The fire department, we don't do search.
Right.
That falls under the sheriff. Right. But it was an accident. We will go in there for the rescue, which is that first 10-hour period. Right. Then our focus changed a little bit. Certainly.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yep. The importance of the new proffers, without those proffers, we would not have established the relationships, had the planning that we did, had the presence down there at Meadow Event. So I can't say enough for those. That is truly key. If I hadn't met the balloon meister or I met him that day, I would not have brought him to the scene. I knew he was going to be an asset for me. I knew he was going to be able to tell me all the balloons were down, how many people were in this balloon, what the cell phone numbers of those people in those balloons were, which were later used by the different offices to help locate the folks. The other piece that both the sheriff and I have talked to this board about is our radio system. This is a key event in the county, which our radio system was inadequate. We were down to cell phones. Where we found the first victim, we were down to cell phone communications because our system would not go out. We made some decisions to use Caroline Pines as a command post, and that decision was solely based on Caroline County maintaining some control over its assets and units in the field, because if we had gone to Meadow Event Park, which has a suitable place for a command post, we would have lost all communications, both portable and mobile. Our system today is just not adequate in that part of the county. So I want to thank the board for voting for the new system. It'll personally give us communication in that area, give us interoperability on some of the national frequencies, that we would be able to communicate with Henrico as well as the state police without having to do a patch. We can do that right from our portables. So when we talk about the radio system and the board's commitment to funding that, here's a prime example where that would have been ideal for us to have that level of communication in place. And lastly, the need for specialized response equipment. We had to go out as a fire department and borrow another fire department's four-wheel drive Gator to be able to remove some of the victims from the woods and get some of our people into the woods. So before you tonight on the consent agenda, you have some surplus. We would like to try to use some of those surplus to buy a specialized piece so that we can use it for both fire and EMS in the densely wooded areas of our county, because we have a lot of them. We really do. And this is just one event. As we do more at Meadow Event Park, both the sheriff's office and us, having a vehicle we can travel around to do fire inspections is invaluable for us. I would like the sheriff to say something about today's events for the board.
Thanks. Good evening. I did talk with each of you a little bit earlier, but wanted to also let the press know, too, that the rest of the balloon has been located. They were by Caroline residents. They wish to remain anonymous. As a matter of fact, they came by my house last night to tell me about it. We went out this morning, Major Moser, Captain Lambert, and the two other individuals, and we did locate it. We've been in touch with NTSB, and we have recovered that item for them. The thing that I will let the press know, and y'all are getting it first from anyone else, it was found in the Mattaponi River. And the best location I'm going to give you now, you can say between Milford and 301. So reports of everything being east of 301 turned out to not happen. So just to let you all know, we do have that. We're still working on it. Again, I thank everyone that was involved with it and wanted to give you that heads up. Of course, my condolences goes to the 3 victims and their families also.
Any questions?
Any questions? No questions? Chief, you're gonna assure us that the new radio system is going to work in this area?
Without a doubt, because of the Doswell Tower, most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely.
I think Motorola will too, so we should be good.
Okay. All right, no other questions? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. White, you want to try again?
Before you do that, can I go back, or you want me to hold my comments for the ALA? I wanted to bring that up since y'all were talking about that just earlier.
Yeah, why don't you hold those comments and we'll talk to ALA and probably let the county administrator talk to you about it.
That'll be fine.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Pardon me 1 minute here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for allowing us a few minutes to talk about this important study we've been doing with economic development and, frankly, with some of your regional partners as well. I'm going to give you a brief status update on this transit corridor study we're doing. Feel free, of course, to interrupt me as you have any questions. But I'm going to focus on sort of where we've been, why we're doing this, and what we've done to date, so to bring you up to speed on where we are. The recommendations for an alternative to carry forward, and then the next steps for this process, frankly, beyond the scale of the study we're doing. So I'll just start with the study area for the project extends throughout the county along both I-95 and the CSX mainline corridor, and then it also reaches out to Washington, D.C. and Richmond. And the reason for that really is why we're doing this. And the reason that we're doing this is because, as you know well, living where you do, that going north, going south, depending on the time of day, can be incredibly difficult. Whether you're traveling into the county for work or to visit, or out of the county as a resident or a worker. I-95 has simply become unreliable in terms of being able to predict travel time on it because of the congestion. And meanwhile, we have an increasing number of both freight trains as well as passenger trains traveling on the rail corridor. So that corridor is increasingly busy as well. So the charge for this project was to look at opportunities to enhance mobility for residents, workers in Caroline County, looking at both the I-95 and the CSX mainline corridors. The process we were involved in is what's formally referred to by the Federal Transit Administration as an alternatives analysis. And you can really think of that as a detailed study of different options and their potential feasibility in serving that purpose that you saw in the previous slide. And it's a very straightforward process. It looks at the conditions today, which informs the need for the project. We develop alternatives in response to those needs, and then we hope to arrive at a preferred alternative that the sponsor, in this case being the county, could work with its partners to advance in some way to making mobility improvements or making improvements. We're at the point in the process right now where we have a recommendation in front of you, and that's mostly what I'd like to talk about today, but I'll walk you through some of the progress to date. We've been coordinating with your MPO partner in FAMPO. We've been working closely with county staff, as well as with local landowners. We've also worked with the State Department of Rail and Public Transportation, and we've spent some time working with the Federal Transit Administration to keep them appraised to our progress. The beginning of the study, we collected a whole bunch of data from different studies the county has done, the region has done, and the state has done to form a basis for what we were going to do. We did go out in the field because this particular study looked at, or needed to look at, different potential transportation facility locations. We looked at a number of different locations, so we did a field review as well. We communicated all of this front-end information to our state and federal partners in what's called an initiation package to get their buy-in on what we were going to study. After that, we started to develop alternatives. Lots of different ideas for transit alternatives were generated, centered around that purpose and need that formed the basis for the study. We went through 2 rounds of screening. The first round of screening, think of that as we're trying to remove ideas that just won't work for this particular corridor. Round 2, we were fine-tuning those ideas to the one that will work the best to meet our project purpose and need. Okay? So in our first tier of screening, we looked at all of these different potential transit mode options. And what came out of it was that the most effective way to serve this project's purpose and need would be accommodated through things like express bus and commuter bus, coach services that you see today that operate in the I-95 corridor serving particular origins and then employment destinations in DC and Richmond. Bus rapid transit, which think of that as everything that rail transit is without rails. Good stations, good quality service, quick service, but on a bus. Commuter rail, VRE is the best example we have in Virginia right now. And then intercity passenger rail. So those services that are passenger rail services operated right now by Amtrak that operate between cities throughout the East Coast but are shorter distance, more work purpose travel. All of those ones on the bottom really didn't fit the purpose and need for what we were looking at, so we eliminated them. We looked at a number of different facility locations where this service would be centered in the future. You can see on this map it was Carmel Church, Ladysmith, Bowling Green, and then a station in the location of Route 606, actually I think quite close to the Stonewall Jackson Shrine. We looked at that station location because of its near proximity to the proposed and currently planned extension of VRE to Crossroads, knowing that we would, if we were going to look at a commuter rail extension in particular, we needed to make it a manageable length in at least its first phase, and of course we needed to locate it along the rail line. Through extensive study and evaluation, what we determined, including comparison with the county's plans for the future, we determined that the most effective location for a future transit facility was going to be in the vicinity of Carmel Church. It has great rail access. It has very good access to I-95. It's in an area where the county has planned growth in the future, and there are certainly designs on growth there. The county's looking to attract economic activity to that zone. For all of those reasons, and some others as well, that was the location that seemed, as far as our study was concerned, to be the most effective location to make a transit investment in the future. So I'm going to walk through a couple of the alternatives. This first one you'll see is from Ladysmith. Throughout the process, we did maintain some alternatives that weren't at the preferred location, mostly on a comparative basis. So alternative 2D looked at commuter bus service originating to and from Ladysmith, traveling both north and south on the I-95 corridor. Alternative 4C looked at intercity passenger rail service. So basically putting a station onto the CSX line, not unlike what Ashland has. Hopefully, we analyzed it as a more permanent station with a regular stop schedule. So actually, let me relate it more to the Fredericksburg station. So that, and you'd have service traveling north and south on that CSX line using Amtrak service. Alternative 6C, alternative 6 was a two-phase alternative. In the near term, we would incept a commuter bus service prior to rail service. We're sort of thinking ahead, thinking there could be a need for the beginning of a service in the corridor sooner than we could get passenger rail service started there. And so we actually analyzed what would be involved in creating a commuter bus service that would eventually transition in time to a passenger rail service. We evaluated these alternatives in a very detailed way using a number of different screening criteria. And when we scored it out, 6C actually had the highest rating, we think, because of the stepped implementation. 4C, which is the intercity passenger rail service, scored very, very well. And each of those scored better than any of the other alternatives we studied. What I would say about this is any of those ones in blue on the left would be good locally preferred policy alternatives because of their relative effectiveness. So just a quick recap, alternative 2D is commuter bus service relying on the existing roadway network. 4C is passenger rail service using the CSX main line, intercepting Amtrak services with a new station at Carmel Church. And then 6C is that combination of both 2D and 4C that in the short term would look like 2D and in the long term would look like 4C. So we just wanted to give you a couple of visuals of what a station might look like. So what you can see in this graphic there at the bottom, you can actually see where there would be a commuter parking lot associated with this, at least in the short term, a couple of bus bays, some nice station facilities to provide a place where people get a feel that this is where the service would operate to and from. There would be some technology associated with the station to tell people where the services are going when they arrive, and all of that. We would design this over time to fit within the context of the larger development plan for Carmel Church, so it's seamless. In the short term, it would start out as a surface lot. In the future, it may be able to transition to either a public space and then have the parking relocated into a garage, or on the site, perhaps that could transition into a parking structure. As rail comes online, the rail station would be in a tangent section of the CSX main line, which is consistent with, I believe, the development plans that have been shown to date, which is where the freight rail operator would want it, and it's also where the state, DRPT, has studied the station location in the past. You would have a very carefully coordinated bus and rail interface, as well as a pedestrian connector bridge across the rail. Of course, we can't have people walking across an active passenger and freight rail line. So in the long term, you can see both in this graphic, the interface between the passenger station, rail station, as well as the bus services. And I should say, I've been talking in terms of commuter services thus far. As the county changes over time and your local transit service perhaps grows or the need grows, this facility also could accommodate that service as well. So where we are in the process is we're getting ready to put together the final documents that will allow county staff and others to continue to have conversations with state and federal partners as to how to potentially bring a different transit and passenger rail service to the county. And really what we need this evening is to have a discussion and I hope some feedback from you all as to what you see as the right policy approach for the county to have for the alternative to enhance transit services for the county. And that's all I have. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Wilson, we appreciate the presentation and you're moving forward. Normally when we take a presentation like this, we're not going to make a decision right away on the presentation, but we will, if you'll provide that PowerPoint to us, we will put it on our consent agenda for our next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Thank you. Okay, we did the chief appointments, no BZA, EMS, Mr. Taylor, Port Royal District.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to see Mr. Wick to return to the Emergency Services Commission representing the Port Royal District. I will make that into a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Social Services, Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we reappoint Ms. Sherry James to the Social Services Board as the Reed Church District Representative.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Underwood, second by Mr. Akers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Middle Peninsula Juvenile Detention Center, of course, we're going to reappoint Mr. Parton. Would somebody like to make that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we reappoint Mr. Alan Parton to be Middle Peninsula Juvenile Detention Commissioner.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Seeley and Mr. Akers, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Okay, consent agenda. Anything we'd like to pull from the consent agenda?
We're just looking at the website with proposals, correct?
We want to
And take
actually
a
put
look
out
at it.
RFP and
Right.
see what's out there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not making a decision or buying anything. We're just saying we want to put it out to bid now.
Okay. I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as proposed. Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
May as well
And
take a break.
then, can we do number 8, which really won't be any big deal?
Oh, that's true.
Will it, Mr. Cullen? And you did the review of Ben. Okay. Huh? Okay. We basically got, we're going to move to agenda item 8 before we take our break, just because it should be fairly quick. We've got the memorandum of understanding with the school board regarding the clerk of the court. There was,
Clerk of the Works.
excuse me, clerk of the works, clerk of the court. Sorry, Mr. Campbell. But anyhow, as the board had said before, we wanted to have someone from inspections as part of the project, and now our someone from inspections will actually be the clerk of the court, so it,
Clerk of the Works.
okay, brain cramp. Clerk of the works, thank you. So, any discussion, questions? Huh? That's probably because I got hit in the head earlier. I'm going to recover from that. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a comment about this. I understand the reason for suggesting this, but I think we also need to understand that what we're basically doing is saying to the school board, we're allowing you to put the monkey from their back onto our back if anything goes wrong, because you know as well as I do, having a county official, and he certainly is an official of being a building official or building inspector, as the clerk of the works for these projects. It's going to come back to look at the county, to the board, as to, you put your guy here, something's wrong, don't come to me, you go to the Board of Supervisors, because they put their person here as clerk of the works. I just want to make sure we understand that, that's what's going to happen to us, and I'm just not sure that's the best decision to go with that route. But if that's the majority of the board wants, I'm going to go along with it as well. But I just want to raise caution here that I think that we could be developing an adversarial situation here that maybe it doesn't need to be.
I think your comments are justified to some degree. I think we were going to, in your words, have the monkey on our back regardless.
And possibly.
And if I'm going to have it on my back, I'm going to have somebody I know that can get it off, at least as quick as possible.
I understand. I understand that.
I don't think the citizens of Caroline are going to look at just the school board if something goes wrong. I think they're going to look at all of us. And we've all said we're in this together. We're trying to help them make a good project. It is their responsibility.
I don't know that anybody's looked at us on the floors at the elementary school, and that's certainly been a problem, and still is a problem. And so I don't know that anybody, I've not had any calls, maybe other board members have, but I've not had any calls from anyone saying, why did you let that happen over there in the Bowling Green Elementary addition with the floors? But again, I have concern.
Well, we said during our work session we're going to move forward. So
I've expressed it, and I'm fine.
Any other questions? Mr. Taylor?
I guess the only thing that I would say is that we just have to be very careful that we're not perceived as holding the school to a different standard than we are other departments in the county. Certainly, and if I may use the sheriff, for example, he spends money. He buys cars. We don't go down to the dealership with him to make sure that he gets the car that we want. Social services and other departments, recreation. I know they don't spend to the magnitude, but I guess my thing is the citizens of Caroline County voted overwhelmingly to do this. And I disagree. I don't think it's on us. I think they're elected just like we're elected. They're held to the same accountability, to the same people that we are elected to and held to. So if the board wants to do it, I will support what the board wants to do because we need to work together. But I just feel like the members of the school board are elected to run the school system, and it is their job to make sure that this project works and is done right. And I have enough work to do. I'm not looking to do somebody else's job. So
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment. Was this not the school board actually, wasn't this a negotiation between us and the school board, and the school board was actually in agreement with, right? I mean, the school board actually was wanting this, correct?
Right. We
So
offered it
confused.
to them, and they said yes.
And they've got at least 4 votes there that say, well, we think that there's at least 4 votes saying that this is something that they want. So I guess I'm kind of baffled as to if it's their decision that that's what they want to enter in with the county and they feel like it's saving them money and it's beneficial to both of us. I guess I'm kind of confused what we're arguing about, because if the majority of 2 boards are in agreement that this needs to happen, I mean, that's what they want. So they can't come back on us and say it's not what we want. We're not forcing them. They have to agree to this. And I mean, if their board says yes, then I don't see a counter argument to this. Thank you.
And again, and just one last comment. It's not my understanding that that was the case, and maybe I've been misinformed. And if that be the case, then that's fine. But I haven't seen anything from the school board requesting us to do that. Maybe there is such a document that I have not seen, but to date, I have not seen that.
Mr. Chairman, I think when we met with the school board, I don't think they had a quorum there at the time. I think they were short a person, but we were there in full force. And I do think the members who were there agreed that it was a good thing to have a county person there. I would say that, I've heard the word micromanage. I don't think we're trying to micromanage. I'd just like to get the best possible work done. And I know that our inspector has an eye for those types of things. He's very diligent and been doing it for a long time. With that said, I just think a second set of eyes on the project would help, and they basically agreed to that. So I don't see any harm.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not arguing about the situation at all. All I'm saying is the fact that it's my understanding we're putting a building inspector and not the building official, but the building inspector.
That's correct. They're going to pick one of the 2 building inspectors
Right.
To use.
And the building official certainly goes over the building inspector. Another one of the building inspectors certainly inspects every phase of the construction.
Right.
When it comes to the foundation and
Right.
all of those other things. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. All I'm saying is the fact that I think the board is putting itself in a position, whereas
And I understand you and Mr. Taylor have actually pointed out the downsides to this project, and there are always downsides to everything. I think what we're trying to do is to help, not only when the sheriff, Mr. Taylor mentions the sheriff buying cars, let's say the sheriff didn't buy the radio system. We bought the radio system. You know, we're trying to make sure the radio system works. I don't think we ever will give the sheriff $25 million to do anything, you know. But we just gave the school system $25 million. And as I read you in the back some of the emails I've received about people paying their tax bill, they want to make sure that we deliver the best project. Now, I understand the school's core competency is education, not building. You know, they hire teachers, they hire administrators. You were one. You don't know anything about building except your own house. You don't know, but you know about teaching. They have thousands of people over there that know about teaching, not building. We're just trying to help them. You know, we're not micromanaging. We're not trying to do anything. We're just trying to put the best people in the right places to help us all get a good project. Because, quite honestly, I'm not happy when I pay my tax bill. So it better be used well. And that's what we're trying to do, is ensure it's done well. You know, it's part of a step we're going to do. We're going to try to do more maintenance with them. Because, again, their core competency is education. You know, Mr. Underwood does it too. You don't really know anything about construction, building construction and things like that. You could care less. So why don't we help them? That's all we're saying. Okay?
And as I said, I go with the majority of the board.
Okay, well, is there a motion?
Mr. Thomas, since I was involved in both the two-on-two discussions with the school board, I think we've done a thorough job with their chairman and vice chairman and the superintendent. I feel confident that we're moving in a good, positive direction, and I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Caroline Public Schools for the clerk of the works for the school construction projects.
Second.
All right, motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Black. We've had enough discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Cully, you'll present everything over to the school board, and I guess they'll meet next week. Oh, they meet tomorrow, that's right, because they're having a special meeting. Okay, we're going to take a 15-minute break at 7:20, according to that clock back there. We should be back at 7:35 for citizens' comments and public hearings. So thank you. We'll be, all right, we will reconvene. We are at the public comment section of our agenda. At this point in time, anyone who would like to speak about any issue within the county may do so. We ask only that you, if you are going to speak on the public hearings, you wait until those public hearings come up before you speak on those. So at this point in time, we will ask anyone who would like to speak as part of citizens' comments to do so, and you will have 3 minutes. So is there anyone who would like to speak? Reverend Clinkscales, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. Don't have any comments, just want to bring to the board a countywide revival that is being planned June 21st, the Meadow Farms Event Park down in Doddswell, Virginia. Just want to put a pin right there and kind of go back to October 15th of 2013 when Thomas Wendell Wheeler passed away in the gym at the high school. 6 days later, Sierra Lynn Moore took her own life in her home. The faith community rallied behind the families to comfort them. We joined hands and around the high school, and we held vigils for those individuals, and rightfully so. But the faith community came together during those tragic moments, and it was the leaders of the local churches here that began a conversation as, why do we only come together in tragedy? Why can we only agree and work together in emergency. And so we began to have conversations about a time where we could come together in a more relaxed atmosphere and just celebrate our faith belief together, and thus community revival, which our theme is reviving hope, not only here in the county, but we're also will be raising money for local pastors that will be traveling over to Kenya this summer for a fact-finding missions trip to support a lot of the orphans that are there. But I wanted to bring to the board the attention to invite you to come out on Saturday, June 21st, 4 o'clock for a concert revival at the Meadow Farms Event Park that will culminate a 3-day revival. But we will conclude at the Meadow Farms Event Park, and we invite you to come out and share in that experience with us, where the whole community will come together for a great evening of fellowship. Did I go over my time?
No.
Okay, good.
You have 20 seconds left if you want
Okay.
it.
Any questions?
No, we don't do it. You said it was the 21st at 1 o'clock?
At 4 o'clock. I will send you the flyers for the board so that you could have those and be able to disseminate those as you need.
Thank you, Reverend Kling Scales. This is not the Gospel Fest, it's something different, right? Or is
It
that-
is something different.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of citizens' comments or public comments? Anyone else? Anyone else would like to speak as part of public comments? Hearing none, public comments are declared closed. We will now move to our public hearings. We have a few today. Our first one is the VDOT fiscal year 2015 to 2020 6-year improvement plan. Sean, you want to make a presentation beforehand? Or is that Mr. Fincham? Mr. Fincham?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Shaw Nelson is here, the residency administrator for our area, to present the 6-year secondary roads plan for Caroline County. As the board is aware, we update the 6-year plan every year. Mr. Nelson's office has provided the proposed 6-year plan based upon the funds available, both state and federal sources, as well as projects that are already in process or planned for completion in the 6-year plan. You have an extra page that was handed out prior to the meeting, which reflects unpaved road funds which previously were not included with the 6-year plan provided to the board on Friday. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson?
Good evening again. I just wanted to say that the Code of Virginia requires the County Board of Supervisors and Department to formulate the 6-year secondary improvement plan and a priority list for the secondary improvement budget. We have provided the proposed plan and budget for your consideration regarding this matter. Today's public hearing is being conducted for the 2015 through 2020 plan and the 2015 fiscal year. Please keep in mind that the plan is only for improvements and new construction. It does not include any maintenance work, such as potholes, pulling ditches, snow removal, or repairing roads. In preparation of updating the proposed 6-year plan, we met with the county and staff to discuss the current plan and to seek guidance on any changes that may have been determined necessary by your county since the approval of the current plan. The proposed 6-year plan has the following that has been recommended. There are 2 projects that are currently ongoing: Route 639 Ladysmith Road Intersection Reconstruction Project, Route 633 Bull Church Road Bridge Replacement over South River, Route 760 Sorrel Lane, which will be done as a rural rustic road similar to what we did on Colemantown Road, Faulkner, and OCC, and Route 629 Menarche Road, which will also be done similar to the way we've done Colemantown Road, Faulkner, and OCC. The funding amounts are estimated allocations, and if there are no questions from the board, I would recommend we approve this.
Thank you. We're going to have to kind of go through the process of having a public hearing first, though.
Okay.
Any questions from Mr. Nelson or Mr. Fincham at this time? None? Thank you, Mr. Nelson. If you'll have a seat, I'm sure there are thousands of people who want to speak on this. So I will declare the public hearing for the 6-year road improvement plan to be open. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Mr. Nelson, if you'd like to come back, and I'll ask again if there are any questions. I don't imagine there are any questions for Mr. Nelson, other than the fact that we used to have quite a few projects in our 6-year plan, and now we have 4.
Yes, we're trying to keep it as funded as possible while not putting projects on the plan that we can't fully fund. So everything that you've got on the plan is being funded throughout the 6 years. So once projects come off the list, we add projects on the list.
Okay. Motion would be in order, if there are no other questions.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Underwood and seconded by Mr. Taylor to approve the secondary system 6-year plan. All in favor, and the resolution we have in our packet. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you very much.
We will get you the resolution as soon as possible. All right, Mr. Fincham. Agenda item number 5, Eflin Leslie, the zoning from RP to M1.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing tonight is RZ01-2014. Leslie Heflin, owner and applicant. He's requesting a rezoning from RP, Rural Preservation, with a density of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres of land, to M1 Industrial with proffers on tax map 108-A-44, which consists of approximately 1.75 acres of land. Property is located at 32361 Richmond Turnpike, approximately a third of a mile south of the Route 30 intersection in a Reedy Church voting district. The proposed use would be industrial, specifically minor auto repair establishments as allowed in the M1 zoning district. The 2030 comprehensive plan identifies the area as being located in the Dawn land use plan and designated for planned development. The applicant is requesting the rezoning to establish, or I should say reestablish, a minor auto repair facility in what was formerly the Gwathney gas station and auto repair site. The property has been dormant and unused for a number of years, and a rezoning to allow this use to be reestablished would bring an existing vacant property back into productive business and industrial use. The applicant has proffered out a number of uses on this site, which staff and the Planning Commission felt were incompatible with the area. VDOT has identified the improvements required. The Health Department does have questions about the well. A new well would have to be drilled if the old well is in fact determined to be contaminated. There was a functioning sewage disposal system on the site at one time. That system can be used provided no significant repairs or upgrades are needed. If that facility is not deemed to be adequate, then connection to the Dawn wastewater system would be required by county ordinance. The Planning Commission forwarded this request to the board with a recommendation of approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fincham. Board members at this time have any questions for Mr. Fincham? No questions. Thank you, Mr. Fincham. We will declare the public hearing for RZ01-2014 to be open. I take it you're the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to speak?
I just thank you guys for all your time and effort that's been put into all this. Been waiting patiently and hope everything goes through, and hopefully I'll be able to provide employment for somebody that's unemployed in the community down there. That's about it. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members. My name is David Brown. I own property adjacent to this property. I've owned property quite a few years.